Why does it matter how women are looking at cardio in perimenopause and menopause?
Cardio training, especially if we're looking at the intensity of cardio training, can have variable hormonal responses. And it is a stress. People forget that when you're exercising, you're putting your body under stress, and we get fitter from the recovery. So when we're looking at the peri and postmenopausal post-exercise responses, we want to invoke a stress during exercise that's going to have a positive response in those adaptations, like an increase in growth hormone, increase in testosterone, which then over time reduce cortisol so we don't have as much cortisol peak and trough. And when we're looking at why we want to really examine the intensity of cardio work is we have been ingrained in this idea of long, slow distance or calories in, calories out. You have to spend an hour of like sweating and trying to cane yourself. And when we look, that really low intensity stuff is good for mental health, but not so much for cardiovascular. And when we're looking at that moderate to high intensity, where we've all been conditioned that that's how we're supposed to feel after a cardio session, completely smashed, that intensity isn't quite right to get the adaptations we want.
Yeah, I remember just the sort of attitude of if there isn't a bucket nearby, then you haven't worked hard enough, right? If you're not vomiting after, you know, with the intensity, then you just haven't done it right? Okay, so let's actually define intensity, because I know you and I both speak about, you know, I always say, like, please don't write me letters, but, you know, I always talk about Orange Theory and F45 and these classes where it seems intense, but maybe not quite in the physiological way that you're describing. So let's actually just put some definitions around what we're talking about when we're talking about intensity. What do we mean by that?
Yeah, so I mean, I've gotten letters about the F45 and Orange Theory, even from the companies themselves, trying to understand what we're talking about. Yeah. So when we're looking at those kinds of classes, and it's not just those two particular areas, but it's all the gym type classes that are now being marketed to women 40 plus or in the midlife, where you think, okay, I'm going to go for an hour, I'm going to smash myself, and it's using some weight, so maybe I'm getting some strength training and I'm increasing my heart rate. But when we're looking at it, you cannot hold the appropriate intensity for that hour. Because when we're looking at the scale of intensity, we have the zone 1, which is kind of the resting, really low, just walking, really kind of dog walking, leisurely style. And then we have the zone 2 that everyone talks about, where you can hold it and your breath is elevated. And we say that's around the 60% heart rate max. Then we get into this moderate intensity, which a lot of people are like, oh, zone 3, zone 4. And this is where we say it is too hard to be easy to get the adaptations we want from those lower intensities, but it's too easy to be hard to get the adaptations we want from the higher zones. So we're in this moderate, and it doesn't really do much for us when we get to our midlife. If we are looking to train for something that we are doing that's more endurance, like a 10K run or something like that, you might have to spend time there. But for general fitness, that intensity makes you feel smashed, and it is a very strong metabolic and central nervous system stress. But it isn't a high enough threat, as we say, to the entire system to invoke a change of let's make ourselves really super robust to that stress. When we're in peri and postmenopause, we need that upper end and that really significant lower end. Because now we're trying to find an external stress from exercise that's going to signal the body to adapt how hormones used to support. So we're looking at metabolic control, we're looking at brain health, we're looking at cardiovascular and blood pressure combinations. We're looking at how we're invoking muscle regeneration and muscle growth and the conversation to reduce this visceral fat and reduce the body fat accumulation. If we stay in that moderate intensity zone, we don't have a strong enough stress to invoke those signals. And that's why we see so many problems when women are like, but I go to Orange Theory 4 times a week, or I do F45, or I go to Barry's boot camp, and I'm not getting any results. I'm just getting really tired, and I'm tired but wired, and I just don't know what to do.
And it's, we're calling out companies, but this could also just be jogging on the treadmill 4 to 5 times a week. It could be on the Stairmaster or the elliptical or the, in your spin class at your local gym as well. So these are areas where, and I would love for you to maybe expand on this a little bit. That zone 3-4 tends to be a bit more catabolic, right? Because you're just using up glycogen, like muscle glycogen. But when you're in that zone, those higher, even the polar ends, so zone 1 and even zone 2 and then zone 5, and then some people will even argue that there's a zone 6, but we'll just, for the argument, just say that there's a zone 5 right now. Those are anabolic, right? So there's zone 1 and 2 are very much recovery. So I never get very hungry after a walk or after cleaning up my kitchen or even just, a light, like a brisk walk in the neighborhood, a weighted vest, that kind of thing. And the same is true when I am doing high intensity interval training. I'm not really hungry afterwards. Whereas when I do find, and I will, with the spirit of transparency and honesty, there is a step class that I really, because I am a step, I grew up, teaching
with
steps.
Step aerobics.
Step aerobics. So I love, it's like, I just have so much fun doing it. And I know I'm in like zone 3 and 4. But I'm hungry. Like I always notice I'm like just a little hungrier after that class. It doesn't quell my hunger, the way that maybe a zone 1, 2, weighted vest walk might. So I think that it's also important to also distinguish the different outcomes on the body as you've been describing. But one is more catabolic, which is at 3-4, and then we tend to, as you're saying, like we tend to drive up cortisol, and this like elevated cortisol, sort of chronically elevated, inflammatory. Well, I guess chronically it's inflammatory, can drive up the belly weight and the things that women will often complain about in midlife. Like, I don't know where I'm working out 5 days a week. I don't know why I have this midsection that won't budge.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I'll be full disclosure too. I still love going out and riding my bike for hours at a time, right? Or doing bike intervals that are a little bit longer than what a sprint interval would be. But I don't do it all the time. And I'm sure you don't do your step aerobics all the time. So there is a time and a place. It's just people shouldn't put all their eggs in that one basket, because we do have to think about, the soul food and all the things that make people happy. But when we're looking at the quality, we want to really look at quality over quantity. So people are also stressed for time, and they're like, well, I need to go fit this class in, or I need to go jump on the bike or go for a run or something like that. And so they're really stressed around, I have to do it for 45 minutes. But if you were to look at the quality and really focus on the proper polarizing intensity of 1 minute on, 2 minutes off, or something to that effect, you get a really solid workout in 25 to 30 minutes. That is going to do more for your body than the 45 to 60 minutes. And it's really, really hard for so many women in this age bracket to wrap their heads around, because we have grown up in the whole step aerobics and 90-minute fat burning classes and more is better. But we look from a physiological and hormonal response, it's not better. It's let's look at the quality and the intensity to get the responses that we want that doesn't overdrive our sympathetic nervous system and make us in that tired but wired state.